Hey guys, welcome to Dimitris Travel and Tips. I'm Dimitri, and today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people ask me about. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of teaching English as a second language. Now, this totally depends on if you're doing this in person at a school in another country or if you're doing it online. I've done both. These days I'm just teaching online, so that's just kind of how I ended up because of my traveling lifestyle. But let's just hop into some of the different pros and cons of each thing. So, some of the pros. There's a lot of flexibility. You know, this totally depends on your position. With online jobs, it's pretty much always flexible. You know, it's really just student dependent, their schedule. But you can sign up for classes when you want, and maybe people will fill those slots, maybe they won't. If you're working at a public school, you are going to be on a public school schedule. It's not flexible, it's the same. If you're working at a private school, like I've also done, you kind of get to not really pick your hours, but your hours are more varied. You can kind of make more kind of personalized decisions based on that. Now, another pro is that you are basically getting paid to travel. Many of these schools, they will actually pay for your flight ticket. Some of them, they pay for your apartments or your homes. Now, that has nothing to do with the online jobs, but with the online jobs, you can basically go anywhere that has a good internet connection, like me. I'll be traveling through the Americas from Mexico to Argentina, and along that whole way, pretty much with a few exceptions, I'm going to be working. And so that's the incredible thing about online work. Now, you usually get better pay and salary, insurance, benefits, retirement, that kind of stuff, working at a real school, which you don't at most online jobs. But I work for Lingoace mainly right now, and they have no benefits, but they have really good pay for an online position. So when you're traveling in countries like Mexico or Peru or Brazil or Costa Rica, these places have a much lower cost of living and cost of travel. So even if you make less money, that money goes much, much, much further than it would in your own home, Western country. So now let's talk about a couple of cons. There is usually a language barrier. Now, if you're at a school, you usually get a co-teacher, something like that, who speaks at least some English and can translate and assist you. Now, with online jobs like mine, there's nobody there, it's just you. So sometimes I have these kids and they just don't understand anything that I say. Even I can translate into Chinese, I don't know if it's right or not sometimes, but they don't understand. Sometimes there's a parent and they can help, but yeah, there is a serious language barrier, so you have to be patient. Now, this could be a pro or a con, but you need to relocate for in-person jobs. Some people, they want to stay in their home. They don't want to go to Korea or Vietnam or something. They want to stay in America or Australia or wherever you're coming from. Chance, you're going to have culture shock. It might be small, it might be enormous, and each country is going to shock you in different ways. So, you have to be ready for that, and you have to just be faithful that it's going to work out, you'll figure it out, get used to the culture and stuff. This is typically with an in-person job at a school, but this can also happen with online jobs. I worked at Cambly, and I still kind of do for fun. And sometimes I'm talking to these people, just chit-chatting, and there is some cultural barrier that can happen, and well, it can be pretty tough sometimes to navigate. But if you find that exciting, then this is like the perfect job for you. You want to learn about new cultures, history, traditions, new languages, even like myself. I know a bit of like 5 or 6 languages. So it's pretty cool, pretty fun. You can talk to all kinds of people and learn a lot. Now let's get back to some of the pros that are kind of more minimal. With an online job, you have no boss, pretty much. I mean, you have to follow the rules. If you don't, someone will give you a stern talking to. But all in all, you're doing your own thing on your own time in your own space. So there's nobody looming over you, making sure you're doing stuff the way you're supposed to. As long as nobody complains, you don't do something terrible. So for me, personally, I love that. I hate having a boss. I know most people do. So I really love that aspect. Now you can really get a sense of community working at this kind of job at a local school or something. You see the kids in your day-to-day life at the grocery store or something. It's very cute, very fun. And I mean, in Asia, where most people are teaching and living, you get this sense of high respect as a teacher, whereas in the West, we really don't value education and teachers so much, which you can see from the pay differences and the way people treat teachers. In Asia, people might be like, "Oh, wow, you're a teacher. That's incredible. You're like the best." In America or some other Western country, maybe people are like, "Oh, you're a teacher. I'm so sorry." There is a big gap and difference. So that's probably why most people move there also. This has nothing to do with online jobs, but the in-person thing can have a huge effect. Now let's just talk about a few more cons and wrap up the video, guys. These are some smaller cons, like you can have issues with students or parents. Parents historically are very protective of their kids, and they can kind of be a pain sometimes. In other cases, the students are very naughty, having really bad behavior, whatever. But with a little work, some training, you can figure it out, practice. And this next one, this is kind of a big thing, kind of a small thing, depends on you, but also like you can get a lot of jobs with really low pay. I've had a ton of them, both online and in person. Now, in person, typically the salaries are quite generous, compared to your cost of living situation. Back in your own countries, it might not be a lot, but like in the real world situation, it's a lot. Online jobs, until I found Lingoace, I was struggling. Sometimes working for as little as like $3 or $5 for an hour. But it was still enough to get me through some of these really, really cheap countries. That's not gonna fly for 90% of people. So until you get more experience, you might want to kind of lay low with the online jobs and get some real world experience, get a little nest egg going, and then start the online thing. Now the final things are kind of about pay too. It's like there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of uncertain pay, like with bonuses and certain like peak hours, and sometimes it's not clear how much you're actually gonna make. Sometimes like, one week, for example, I worked 35 hours in that week. Another week, I worked 10 hours. So this uncertain schedule, uncertainty of like how much you're gonna make per week or per month or especially per year, that can be a burden for a lot of people who are, really needing that money. So I don't really recommend it for someone in that position, unless you're really willing to like stick it to that job, And finally, the last thing, and this is a both small thing and big thing, but the lack of internet stress of finding an internet connection when you're out there in the Amazon rainforest or the jungle of Laos, a small town with villagers and stuff, like for real villagers. This is something that constantly stressed me out, constantly worried. There's a lot of creative solutions, and I mean, at least nowadays we have Starlink, but that's freaking expensive. So that's my pros and cons of teaching English as a second language. But overall, I love teaching English. I had so many jobs before teaching, and it just never worked out. I wasn't into it, but this is just like, for me, the perfect job. Best job in the world. And I love my students and everyone that I'm always teaching. I hope some of you are watching. Teacher Dimmy is looking out. But anyway, guys, I hope this answered all of your questions. If you have any more, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. I'll definitely answer any and all of your questions. I always check. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.